Hello, and welcome to another episode of How the Hell Did I Get Here show with Meg and Rachel. Thanks for joining us. Today on the show, we have Jennifer Eggers. Jennifer is the founder and president of LeaderShift Insights, Inc. The firm is known for helping leaders dealing with disruptive change who want to increase their organization's capacity to adapt so they can emerge stronger and more effective faster. A consultant, coach, best-selling author, and speaker, Jennifer has a passion for creating alignment and resilience so your team can do more with what you already have. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
All right.
Well, before we get started, can we have Jennifer mention her book and then we'll ask?
Oh, sure.
How does that sound?
Of course.
Tell us about your book, Jennifer.
Oh, sure. So resilience, it's not about bouncing back, how leaders and organizations can, I've like totally lost the tagline. Hang on.
You better get it. I was just going to give you props for remembering.
Wait, let me. Okay. Ask me that question again.
Hey, Jennifer, tell us about your new book.
I'm so glad you asked. Resilience, it's not about bouncing back, came out last July, and the book is about how leaders and organizations can build resilience before disruption hits. Although now with COVID and everything else going on, we're building resilience as we go as well. So even in the midst of disruption.
I know that's the ironic thing. Your book came out in time to prepare for the pandemic, but probably enough people didn't do it. So now it's like, okay, now we're in the middle.
Yeah, we may need to change that tagline. We're doing a lot of workshops to help prepare for disruption. Build the plane while we're flying it now.
Yeah, I think you're about the fifth person I've heard that from today. It is definitely all over the place. Everyone's trying to figure this out on the move. So thanks for your work on that.
Yeah. Well, referencing other times, better times, different times. Different times. Tell us, Jennifer, about your how the hell did I get here moment. For better or worse, the good, the bad, the ugly. What was your moment where you thought, what am I doing here?
Yeah, the moment that comes to mind is back maybe 2 years ago. I was actually, so I study and research a lot on adaptive leadership. And adaptive leadership is a notion coming out of Harvard. And if you didn't go to Harvard, you're not invited to the network. So you couldn't actually join the network and be a part of the group studying this if you didn't go to Harvard. So I didn't. I actually came to the topic a different way. And so 2 years ago, the network started inviting people that didn't go to the program at Harvard to join. And so I was one of the first that was asked to join the network and got invited subsequently to speak at a conference for the Adaptive Leadership Network at Harvard. And it was absolutely a surreal moment. They actually moved the conference off the Harvard campus because they were inviting some people that didn't go to Harvard. And so being one of those people, it was pretty funny. There were about 3 of us out of like 350 people. And I was actually invited to speak 3 times in a weekend. And it was, for someone that just came at this from a different place, it was just completely surreal. And I remember standing in line. I had my first presentation, which actually was about the connection between resilience and adaptive leadership. And I had no idea if the network would support the theory I had, and if Ron Heifetz, the professor that wrote all this, would actually buy into it. So I wasn't sure. So I stood in line for, like an hour to meet with him it was like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. I outlasted the line the night before my presentation. And I stood there and I walked up very, sheepishly and said, hey, I'm presenting this topic tomorrow. And, if you don't actually agree with the premise, it's going to be a very long night. So I just want to run this by you. And, by the grace of God, I went through it and he said, oh, this is brilliant. And I think I just was so flabbergasted. It was unreal. But anyway, that became the impetus for a number of things. So I subsequently got certified as an adaptive leadership advanced practitioner. And he previewed a draft of my book before it came out, gave me all kinds of great feedback. And now I'm writing a chapter, actually contributing a chapter in another book about adaptive leadership written by a bunch of folks in the network. So that was my surreal moment.
Well, was it surreal that you waited in line for an hour at 11 o'clock at night, or was it?
I think it was just surreal being there. This Penn Skater being invited and being included to this, this kind of great organization, and being surrounded by people who, are clearly smarter than me and certainly knew a lot more and had studied a lot more, and just being included with them was a fantastic experience. But the standing in line was surreal as well.
Like, wow, who is this guy? Must be I don't even think I've stood in line for an hour for like concerts I've been to, like really famous people.
and neither do I, by the way. So this whole camp out, stand in line thing are not for me. So yeah, it was pretty funny, but he actually is worth it. He's a great guy.
Oh, cool. So how was besides his reaction, what was the weekend like? Did other people respond well, or?
Oh, it was great. Yeah, it was absolutely phenomenal. I met several people that I actually knew through NSA, so there were some other connections that we met there. But the feedback was great. I mean, I was absolutely shocked to learn that I'm there are only a handful of us that work in corporate America. So adaptive leadership is a concept that comes out of the Kennedy School. So by and large, it's been used in government and the public sector all over the world. And so there are only a handful of us in the corporate sector. But, if something is good enough to use to topple a dictator in East Timor, it's probably good enough to solve some of our corporate challenges that we have. And so it's been, I'm sort of the anomaly in the group. So it's been a really interesting experience, but I think I was shocked to learn that there weren't that many of us, but really inspired by the people who are using the concepts to do such greater, broader world-changing things too.
Yeah, that's some cool work. We were talking to some folks doing global health work and with embassies, and I love that just big world view and people making differences all over the world. That's really inspiring.
Yeah, it was, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you're as smart as them, just for the record. Even if you don't have the degree that has the right logo on it or whatever. But
I got the mug though.
What was that?
I got the mug though.
Oh, you have the mug.
I made sure, I don't have it in front of me, but I made sure I got the Harvard mug while I was there.
Right. Who needs a piece of paper? You just need the mug. That's all you need. Awesome. Well, according to our culture type assessment, our Helix culture type assessment, you are self-driven, and you took our assessment ages ago, and we were both trying to remember where you were. And now I recall you being an organizer just near the line and independent. And of course, in our world, that means that you're self-driven, which basically means you don't look for other people's permission to do what you think is right. And it also means that you have to flip between sort of the chaos people and the people that like more order. So do you think that's something that resonates, and how do you see that in your business or your moment?
Yeah, I think that's true. It's interesting that you describe it that way, because I mentor a lot of people, and I think the advice that I frequently give is don't ever let them tell you no. Mm-hmm. And I think it probably did play out in my moment as much as I, didn't realize that. But, there were a couple of years where I was like, well, wait a minute, I do this, I train adaptive leadership, I study this. What do you mean I can't be in the network? Like, what do you mean? Like,
wait, what?
Why is this, right? So I think, I would rather, beg forgiveness than ask permission. So it never occurred to me that I didn't have any right to be there. It never really occurred to me to turn down the speaking engagement. Although I did, they invited me for 3 different things, and I actually turned down one because I said, weekend with 350 people, you don't need to hear from the same person 3 times. So right. I kind of backed off on some of that, but yeah, it never occurred to me that I didn't have the right to be there. I did get really nervous, right after I got there, and I realized, I didn't know anybody, and I was like, uh-oh. But leading up to that, it never occurred to me, and I don't think it does even today. I do feel very much that I had as much right to be there as anyone, and I was able to, that I still contribute to the network events and things, as best I can. So I think being self-driven probably contributes to that. So I would definitely, that's the advice I would give anyone, coming out of school or early career is, if you want to do something bad enough, just go do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. I mean, Meg's over here smiling because she's right on the other side of the line from you, but pretty much in the same spot. So
yeah, pretty self-driven. And when people are like, I can't, I'm like, I can't, my brain doesn't process it. I'm like, what do you mean? We actually have a rule in our house for my daughters, which is you never say I can't. You can say, I'm not sure what to do and I need help. Or I need some more time to figure this out, but you may not say I can't, because it's not allowed. I don't get it. So it short circuits my brain. So
yeah. And the other thing that short circuits her brain, and I wonder if you have a similar experience, is, a lot of people are driven by wanting to do, like, either wanting to make sure everyone's okay, or not wanting to do something that might make somebody upset, even if they think the right thing to do. So, like, kind of what's your view on, it's not that you don't appreciate and see that and need to understand teams. It's more about kind of at the core what drives you. So, what would you say if someone said, well, but nobody else is doing it. I might be one of 3 people at the thing out of 300. That seems scary. You don't care.
No, I don't care.
Don't care.
I mean, we wrote a book on resilience when no one was talking about resilience. So, admittedly, there was part of me and my co-author as well that we really thought that something was going to happen. And we felt a strong sense of urgency to get the book out, a year or so ago. But I mean, at the time, everyone said we were nuts. I mean, resilience wasn't even a word. People didn't talk about it. And here I was running around saying resilience is the #1 skill of leaders today, and no one's talking about it. Well, here we are a year later and everyone's talking about it. So, I think it didn't really matter to me that nobody was there yet, because I knew they would get there. I mean, I just felt like, if I'm there now, others will get there, because I don't think I'm crazy. So, I kind of give myself permission to be where I am. And then, if that's not where everybody else is, it's all right. I don't really worry. I mean, I don't worry about that, but I do worry about how am I going to bring them along? I mean, I do worry about not getting so far out ahead that you can. I think I've been burned that way in my career. It's like when you get out too far ahead and you don't bring people along with you, then it's really, it's really hard. It's like not worth getting out ahead if you can't bring people along. So I've had to kind of go back and figure out, the change curves and just figure out how to engage people. But I've usually found, and I can point to 3 or 4 situations in my career where, I was out a year ahead with something that, went over like a lead balloon. And then a year later, it's like, oh, everybody's using it.
It's the biggest thing. Right. Yeah. Well, even your title of your book, which is Resilience, it's not about bouncing back, right?
Yeah.
Even that I have seen has generated some controversy about it's not bouncing back. And so that's even when you talk about resilience, you talk about it in a way that people are like, but wait, isn't that what resilience is?
Yeah. Well, and there's 2 reasons for that. I mean, the first of which is that if you look at the articles and the articles that have got the most clicks in HBR, if you look at, the books that get the most traction, it's usually a cover that is sort of conflicting, and not necessarily obvious, but it's the cover that kind of makes you go, wait, what? And so I wanted that very much when we wrote the book. But I will say, I mean, when you ask someone what's resilience, I mean, 9 in 10 people will say, well, it's about bouncing back. Mm-hmm. And I just think that misses so much because, with the rapid pace of change and the amount of the pace of disruption today, if you just try to go back, there's no back. We're not bouncing back from COVID. We're moving forward into something else. We don't know what that is yet, but we can't go back. I mean, you have to figure out how to go forward. And so one of my favorite quotes is by a woman named Carla Trotman, who's a CEO of a manufacturing company in Philly. And, when I had this conversation, Carla runs the Alumni Association at Drexel. And, she said, we were talking about this. I don't even think the book had come out yet. And, she said, you can't bounce back because there's no back to bounce to. By the time you move forward, everything has changed. And I can't agree with that anymore. Like, I think that's really the theme is how do you figure out how to emerge stronger and more effective? Whereas if you're just trying to go back to something that was, you're not moving forward. And the other kind of interesting thing is that if you take a ball and you bounce a ball, it never comes back higher than it was before. eventually it peters out, right? So this notion of bouncing back to me doesn't capture resilience at all.
I know, you're so self-driven. It's awesome. I'm going to say what I think no matter what, if no one else thinks, no one else agrees. I love it.
Yeah, it's the world's best trap of the self-driven human. It's caught me with my pants down, so to speak, many times.
True.
Yeah. Okay, just because I'm dying to know. So we're gonna have one bonus question.
Uh-oh.
Jennifer, give us your number one tip for leaders and all of our leader listeners on resilience. What's your number one tip? If you had to tell somebody something in an elevator real quick about resilience, what would it be?
Yeah, I would say the number one thing is know what you stand on. So figure out what your core beliefs are. So, individually, that might look like faith. And in the workplace, that may look like your mission, your vision, your values, whatever your team stands for. But what I would say is it's almost impossible to stand up when things are tough when you don't know what you're standing on. So it doesn't matter what it is for you. It's not to espouse any particular belief system. But what is really, really super critical is that you know what is absolutely true for you.
All right.
See, this is why Jennifer's our people.
You heard it here, folks. Okay. Well, Jennifer, we all three of us could talk all the rest of the day, but we're all very busy business professionals. And so we don't have time.
And
so
right now, especially, there's all kinds of resilience and
Yeah.
chaos happening in the world.
Yeah.
The guy gets busy.
Yes. So thank you, everyone, for listening to our show today with Jennifer Eggers. And if you have any questions for Jennifer, or you want to read her book or learn more about her business, it will all be in the show notes that Shelley, our GM, is laboriously working on all the time. And Jennifer will also be promoting it out in her own network as well.
Space.
So Jennifer, thank you for joining us today. It was so lovely to visit with you.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been so much fun. I can't wait to listen to the other episodes on your podcast.
Yeah.
They're pretty fun.
Yeah. All right. Until next time, folks, lead powerfully.
Change the world.
Bye for now.